You owe the IRS and you don't think the amount that you should have to pay is what they say you have to pay. That is where you need to file an appeal. You may remember from last episode 26, where I told you the appeal office is actually an independent organization, so they can review it from a different perspective and point of view and not be slanted towards the IRS, okay? Because I remind you all the time, the IRS is made up of human beings just like me and you, and the IRS understands that, and they understand that mistakes will be made. So they allow you to appeal decisions that examiners make. Now, there are guidelines and some things that you can't use to make an IRS appeal.
Welcome to the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast. Are you behind on taxes? Is the IRS threatening you or your business? Are you overwhelmed and confused about how to resolve your tax issues? Let's join Timalyn as she explains your options and how she may be able to help. Timalyn Bowens is America's favorite EA.
Hey family, welcome back. This is episode 27, and I have to tell you, rolling right off of tax season, I am feeling good. This morning I saw somebody and they said, man, you look a lot more relaxed. You can probably even hear it right now. I feel a lot more relaxed. So rolling off of tax season, if you haven't filed your return yet and you didn't file an extension, it is too late for you to file an extension. However, you do need to make sure that you get that tax return filed ASAP, because the failure to file penalty is accruing right now. In today's episode, though, we're not going to talk about the failure to file penalty anymore, but we're going to talk about what happens when the IRS makes a decision, such as assessing a penalty or disapproving something you propose. We're going to talk about the IRS appeals process. Okay, so last episode we talked about a collection due process hearing, and I kind of, I get excited about this tax stuff. I skipped a part with IRS appeals. So we're going to go over that today, how you can actually make an appeal and what that does for your specific situation. So first off, nobody loves to pay taxes, right? We all know that it's part of our civic duty, but to say that I love to do it, yeah, that's a bit stretching the truth. But there are times when the IRS makes certain decisions that even I don't agree with, even as America's favorite EA, okay? And that's one of the reasons I go to bat for you all, the taxpayer, to say, hey, this decision was not correct. What can we do about it? Personal story I'll share with you. Back in 2020, I actually overpaid my estimated tax payments, all right? So all of the craziness, that was 2021. We were still in a pandemic. We may still be in one. I don't know what the latest stats say, but I went to file my 2021 return in 2022, and because I'm not used to getting refunds, I had forgotten all about the overpayment from the previous year. So get the bill for 2021, and I was still filing on time, so I did get this in 2022. And, well, I guess I shouldn't say the bill. I saw what the bill would be. It's like, that's fine. Get everything set up so it's taken care of, because, I can't be out here in tax trouble. And what happened later, I was looking at my tax transcripts. The same thing I advise you all to do when you don't agree with something, but I was just looking out of curiosity. And when I looked, I saw that I should have got a refund for my 2020 tax return. And it just so happens that the amount that I should have gotten from the 2020 tax return would have covered what I owed for 2021. Now, typically, you all know that if you owe for a year and then you're due a refund, the IRS is going to take that. No questions asked. They're going to say, oh, you had a refund for this year, but we're going to take it for these back taxes. It usually works the other way around. If you have a credit, they will apply that to any debt going forward. Well, this didn't happen in my situation. So we have where I'm essentially double paid, and I'm looking at this notice. Let me know it's all taken care of. But I'm a taxpayer just like you. I want my money, right? So I had to go through the process just like you as a regular taxpayer. I really did, I'll admit, want to abuse my authority and go to the tax practitioner line, but couldn't. And you know what? It made me feel for you all as the taxpayer. The hold line was way longer than on my line, and the process was just different. But thankfully, I didn't have to go as far as an appeal because the IRS was able to see the transcript just like I could and agreed with me. Now, had they not agreed with me that I had an overpayment from 2020, I would have had to file an appeal. And that's what happens for most of you. You owe the IRS and you don't think the amount that you should have to pay is what they say you have to pay. That is where you need to file an appeal. You may remember from last episode 26, where I told you the appeal office is actually an independent organization, so they can review it from a different perspective and point of view and not be slanted towards the IRS, okay? Because I remind you all the time, the IRS is made up of human beings just like me and you, and the IRS understands that, and they understand that mistakes will be made. So they allow you to appeal decisions that examiners make. Now, there are guidelines and some things that you can't use to make an IRS appeal. These things are, it can't be based on moral reasons, religious reasons, anything political, constitutional, or conscientious. So you can't say, I am a part of XYZ political party and I think the tax rates are bogus and I have a conscientious reason due to that for not wanting to pay taxes. They're going to look at you like you're crazy and deny your appeal. Okay? Any reason outside of those is fair game. And what happens when you make this appeal, you will be set up to have a conference with your local appeals office. Now, this may seem scary, so take time, deep breath right here. Make sure you have your pen and paper because I'm going to walk you through what this conference is going to be like. Okay. So with the conference, it can be in person. We haven't seen as many of those in recent years due to COVID, right? Some appeals conferences can be done via correspondence, written correspondence, or it can be done by telephone. Now, if you are still thinking, I don't even want to do it by written correspondence or telephone, what if I mess up? The appeals process is something that you can hire a representative to do. And I will remind you, you can't get Joe Schmo off the street to be your tax representative. If you remember back in episode 23, I talked about the different tax professionals that can represent you before the IRS. They were a tax attorney, a CPA, and just like yours truly, an enrolled agent. So if you're kind of wondering which one would be the best fit for you, I highly recommend you go back and listen to episode 23. So the first type that we have is a small case request. For a small case request, this is going to be something that you want to appeal that is less than $25,000, okay? And you're going to want to write a brief statement along with your notice or letter rather that has what the IRS has decided. And with this brief statement, you want to make sure you include what you are requesting to appeal and make sure you are indicating what you don't agree with. You need to make sure that you have this done within the proper amount of time, which is 30 days from the date on the notice. Now remember, we're dealing with snail mail right now, so it doesn't matter what day you actually received it. It needs to be 30 days from the date on the notice. All right? Now you may be thinking $25,000, that's easy peasy. What about me? I owe over $100K. In your situation, if you want to appeal something that has more than one tax period, or it's for over $25,000, you have to do what's called a formal protest. Now, I'm getting ready to tell you exactly what needs to be in the formal protest, and there's a little bit more required here. So if you don't have pen and paper yet, pause the podcast, go grab your pen and paper, because you're going to want to make sure you have each of these things in your formal protest for the appeal, okay? First, we need the taxpayer's name and address and a daytime telephone number. All right, so if you are the person appealing on your own behalf, that's going to be your information. If you are a tax professional representing someone, it's going to be your client's information. Next, you need a statement very similar to the brief written statement for a small case request that says why you want to appeal the IRS findings to the appeals office. You want to make sure that you include a copy of the letter of proposed tax adjustment. You know, the things that the IRS loves to send out to say, hey, you actually owe us more in taxes, okay? Then we want to make sure we have the tax periods or years involved. So typically, if we're looking at a traditional taxpayer, an individual, the tax years are going to be your calendar years. But let's say this is something like a payroll case. You want to make sure that you don't just have the tax year, you want to have every single period, if you're appealing them, every single period listed on the formal protest. So if it's quarter 1 of 2014, if it's quarter 2 of 2022, you want to make sure you actually have that information, because for an employer with employee tax stuff, you're going to have quarters as your tax periods, not just the year, okay? You want to make sure you have a list of changes that you do not agree with, and not only can you just say what you disagree with, you also need to have a reason for disagreement, okay? This isn't a situation where you can be like a parent and say, because I said so, I don't agree. Again, IRS is going to laugh in your face and deny the appeal. So make sure you have that detail included. Along with your reasoning, you want to make sure that you have facts supporting your position on any issue that you do not agree with. So for example, I had a client where we disagreed with a levy that the IRS had proposed. And the reason that we disagreed, I don't know if things got crossed up in the system, if it got crossed up in the mail. My client had actually sent payment. So one of the facts that I included was a copy of the canceled check, and then also a note from the bank, or I'm sorry, not a note, but showing from online where the check had actually cleared. That was the fact and third-party documentation I had to support the position that the IRS should not be issuing the levy. Now, you need any law or authority on which the taxpayer is relying. This is where, if taxes aren't really your thing, you want to bring in a tax professional so they can have that information from previous tax cases, court cases, or just knowing the Internal Revenue Code to be able to say, hey, this IRS decision is wrong based on the Internal Revenue Manual or based on a decision they made in this case, okay? Now, you know how the IRS makes nothing easy. You have to put your John Hancock on everything because they want to make sure that you are being honest, which unfortunately, a lot of people sign tax returns that are not honest. But here, it can really trip you up if you don't understand what you are signing, okay? So you have to sign the written protest stating that it is true under the penalties of perjury. This is what you are agreeing to, that under the penalties of perjury, I declare that I examine the facts stated in this protest, including any accompanying documents, and to the best of my knowledge and belief, they are true, correct, and complete. So, just reiterating, to the best of your knowledge and belief, they are true, correct, and complete. Folks, IRS appeals, it is not to be used as a strategy to get more time, to get money, or something like that to try to make this go away. This is very serious, and you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, I's dotted, T's crossed, if you are going to appeal an IRS decision. Because at the end of the day, we're using government resources to make sure that you are being treated fairly in the tax world, okay? They're going to make sure that you haven't just thrown something together to waste their time. Because remember, the IRS job is to make sure that they actually collect the taxes. So you want to make sure everything is true, correct, and complete, which is another reason if you were going to do an IRS appeal, you probably really want to consider hiring a professional. Now, tax professionals, representatives, we are under Circular 230, which is how we should run our business, how we ethically should do things. We're not off the hook, okay? We also have to sign a similar statement. So for my tax pros listening to this, I will warn you here, all money is not good money. When you're preparing things for appeals, make sure that what you have, to the best of your client's belief, is true, correct, and complete as well. So I will get off my soapbox there, and let's go ahead and wrap this up. Now, for the formal protest, you need that to appeal things such as an offer in compromise. If we're talking about an exempt organization or an employee plan, partnerships and S corps, and essentially any case that isn't specialized. If we have, you wouldn't have to do it for an appeal of an installment agreement, liens, or levies. So again, anything over the $25,000, or if it has more than one tax period. This episode, I know, is loaded. However, as I always tell you all, you do have options. Just because the IRS says one thing doesn't mean that's actually what it is. IRS appeals is there for you to make sure that you do get treated correctly. And I urge you, again, even if it's not me that you work with, to make sure that you still get the help that you need, because back taxes shouldn't ruin your life. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen today. I'd like to thank Jim Ray Consulting Services for helping me get this message out to you. I hope you found the information helpful. Did you know 1 in 50 people have a tax problem? Please share this episode with your friends and family, because you never know who may need help. Again, thanks for listening. Hey, just as a reminder, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It provides a framework and possible solutions for solving your tax problems, but it is not legally binding. Please consult your tax professional regarding your specific tax situation.